All right, folks. So this video is going to be an introduction to Toon Boom Harmony Premium. A lot of what we do in this video could be done in, I think, any of the versions of Toon Boom Harmony. The version I'm going to wind up using is Toon Boom Harmony 25, the premium edition. And so you see my icon here, so I'm going to go ahead and double click on it. Once it starts to load, you should see something like this. And in Harmony, you work in scenes. And so pretty much if you think of about camera shots, anytime your camera shot would change, background changes, location of the camera, when those things happen, especially if it's a drastic change with the camera position, you would technically create a new scene, animate it, then render it out. And when you have all your rendered scenes, you would do editing in a compositing program like Adobe Premiere, After Effects, something like that. Um, and so when you get to the startup screen, you got to name your scene and you want to really get comfortable, especially if you're going to work on big projects, naming the scene so that you know where they would go. And so for us, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do, since we're going to make a butterfly flapping its wings for this first one, I'm going to call it butterfly underscore one. Then you got to choose a location to put it. So you hit browse, choose my downloads, hit select, and then the size. So it comes with presets here. Depending on what you're doing with your animation piece is going to determine what size you would need. The default is just a standard HD size, which 1920 by 1080. We're going to go ahead and keep that. We're just doing basic 2D traditional animation with this. So I'm going to leave the frame rate at 24. But if I was putting this into, say, a live action movie clip, I need to know what that movie clip is being sized to when it is being recorded so that I can make sure everything matches up right. If you need to make custom ones, you could do so by just hitting this little plus sign. You could design custom size ones and then give them specific names so that they would then appear in your drop down. But for right now, I'm going to leave all the basic info there. I'm going to hit create. Now it does tend to pause when it is trying to create the scene. And so I'll give it a moment to do so. Once it loads, your screen may look like something like this. Um, I'm going to try to show you too the after creating a scene, Toon Boom creates a folder wherever you told it to save it. And inside that folder, it starts to create other folders for elements that make up the project. If you were to try to share this folder with somebody or this project with somebody to have them work on it as well, you must give them this entire folder. Otherwise, it will not show up the work that you've done. So real quick, I'm going to also go here. And I'm going to go ahead and do a file save as, or actually, sorry, let's just do file save because we've already started creating the file. Now, if I go back to that folder, let me pull it back up. If I go back into this folder, now that I have actually saved my file, it starts to create even more uh, elements that go along with the project. All right, so again, if you share this with anybody, this file that you've created, you must give them this entire piece. You can't just give them this XStage file, which is the actual Toon Boom file, because without all these other elements, it'll just come over blank to them. All right, I'm going to close that. And so now, just to get everybody on the same page, I'm going to go to Window, Workspace, Workspace, set it to default, then go Window, restore default. Give it a moment. It takes a moment to reset everything. It's probably going to move it to another screen for me as well. So let me bring that back to my tablet. All right. So now everybody should see the same interface that I see. So we got our toolbar. If you've messed with any type of Adobe software, the toolbar is kind of set up the same way. If I click on a tool, properties over here for that tool get selected. Library, I will look at that later on in other videos because the project we're going to do today could be done in other ways. So I may show that a little bit later on how you could use the library for it. Palettes. So you'll create color palettes. Now our color swatches down here, it defaults to RGB, red, green, blue, black, and white. If you need a new color, you just simply click on one of them, hit the plus sign here, and it creates one called new, and then whatever number it's on. If I double click, I can then choose from the color picker and find a color that I like and give it a name. So let's just go ahead and I'll make a light blue one. I'll call it, I'll just call it cyan. And so now I've got that in there. Now, this is important if you are going to be creating an animation where you're going to need to reuse colors over and over and over again. You want to make sure you name your colors based off of what they're going to be. So if it's a character's skin tone, name it that character's name and skin tone. If it's their hair color, clothing, whatever, give it names that you can easily tell what it goes to. We've got our camera window. So this little box is our camera. Whatever's inside there on a particular frame will be what shows up when it's rendered. You have a drawing tab. If you're on the drawing tab, you only see what is on the specific drawing layer that you have selected at the time. The camera will show you everything on all of the layers that show up in the camera at a specific moment in time. And you can draw well beyond the cameras. You can draw well beyond the drawing, like anywhere on the drawing panel, because you can move the camera around if you need to. Let's see. So some other things, if you hold space, it turns your mouse to a hand when you're over this window. If you left mouse click, you can then pan around, up, down. So that's something. Scroll the mouse wheel in and out. That will zoom you in and out. And then finally, the last little piece that I'll go over as an intro for this is the timeline. This is where all your animation magic happens. So this little plus sign right here will allow you to create different types of layers that can be used. It comes with a default drawing layer, and we'll kind of play around with that. And like I said, for this video, we are simply going to create a butterfly flapping its wings so that I can show you a couple things on how to use Toon Boom. So the first part that we're going to do, well, just to kind of explain what we're going to do, we are going to create an animation cycle of a butterfly flapping its wings. So an animation cycle is just a sequence of drawings that start and end at the same point or position so that you can then repeat it over and over and over again. And it will just keep you recycle it so that you don't have to draw it over and over again. You just copy paste, and so forth. Video games, especially today's video games, with how complex they are, they use animation cycles. You create an animation cycle of a character walking or running, and when you create your video game, you tell the game engine when it should play those animation cycles. So if the character is sitting idle, the player's not doing anything, then it just keeps looping an idle animation of the character kind of swaying back and forth. If they push the forward button to make their character walk, it starts then looping the walk cycle over and over again as the character or as the player is pushing the button. So cycles are used quite often. We are going to make a cycle of a butterfly and reuse it in a very quick version for this particular activity. And then finally, with animation, you rely on the concept of persistence of vision. It's kind of like tricking the brain. So on our timeline here, each one of these little rectangles is a frame. If you draw a drawing on one of them, then you move to the next one, draw a new drawing, and so forth. Then hit play. Even though it's a bunch of still images, the way persistence of vision works, where our eye sees one image or one frame, then it sends that signal to the brain. By the time that signal gets to the brain, the eye sees the next image or the next frame, starts sending that signal. And so we're basically tricking the brain to think that the images are actually moving when all it's doing is actually seeing a bunch of still images in fast, fast speeds that allow us to think it's an actual movie. All right. So now that we've kind of gone over all that, we've got our scene created. Now we're going to go ahead and bring in a reference image because not everybody can draw perfectly, and that's perfectly fine. So we're going to use something to trace if you need it. So I'm going to go to File, Import, Image. I'm going to browse to where you would have downloaded the butterfly flap cycle PNG. And I'm just going to leave everything else as its default. I think that should be fine. I have to move my, let me see if I can shrink this. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move it to a different screen because I can't see the bottom. There is an OK button down here. Once you get to that point, just hit the OK button and you should see that it puts our butterfly samples in here. You'll also see that it brings in a new layer with our image. I want to double click on the name. I can rename it reference. If I want to scale this up or not, I can go over here on the toolbar and down towards the bottom, there's this transform tool. If I click it, turns everything pink, gives me these little points on the edges. If I hold shift, I can scale it up some. Maybe I want my butterfly a little bigger. Then, oops, if you notice what it just did here, because I was on a different frame than I originally was, it set a keyframe. So it said this tool, if this button here is set with the little running man, it will put a keyframe. If you turn it off, then it won't do that. So what I'm going to do is actually just go back over here, right click and tell it delete keyframe. So it's going to go back to its normal size. Then I'm going to go back to this first frame and I'm going to scale it back up. Now it should be good. And then I'm going to go ahead and on this layer, there's a lock right here. I'm going to go ahead and lock that layer. That way I don't mess up or draw on it by accident. Let's see. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just go ahead and do a file save, or you can hit Control S on your keyboard. And this drawing layer, I'm going to call it butterfly underscore line for my line art. I mean, it's going to be everything. And I'm going to grab, take my paintbrush here. Gonna grab a blue. No, let's do black. Let's do black. So I'm gonna grab my black ink, and over here, if you do not see all four of these layers, so you have an overlay, line layer, color layer, underlay. You can go to Edit, Preferences, and in here, go to Advanced and turn on Support Overlay and Underlay Arts. Again, there's a little OK button down in the bottom corner that I cannot get to show up on my tablet. So I'm going to just move that off to another screen to hit it. But you'll have these layers, and we want to be on the line layer. And then what I'll do is just to show you, like if I choose my paintbrush, let it be the default, that's kind of what I'm getting there. I may want it a little thicker, so oops, just gonna scroll down. I'm gonna go with, let's see what this one looks like. Yeah, that worked. So I'm gonna use solid brush 4. Now the one thing you'll notice is if I start drawing, it's not too hard to tell where I've already drawn, but what I can do to make things a little easier, I'm gonna go back to my reference layer. I'm gonna unlock the layer, and I'm gonna select the frame. Let's see, it's gonna let me do it. Let me grab this one. There we go. And I'm gonna go, now that I have it selected, just gonna make sure I have the layer selected. I'm gonna go to Window, then go to Layer Properties, which should pop up this little window. Again, doesn't fit on my tablet. See if I can get it in here. I'm gonna go to Advanced, and for, see if I can shrink it any. There we go. Scroll down under the Advanced tab, and there's opacity, and I'm going to set that to like 25 and hit enter. Then I'm going to go ahead and close out of that, and you'll see, oops, I accidentally grabbed it. Grab my scale again, shrink that back down. You'll see that it fades it out some. And so that way I can tell exactly when I've drawn my new drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and lock this again, go back to my butterfly line, grab my paintbrush, and we'll start with, we have 4 drawings to do because this last one repeats itself. So it goes starting point, frame, then to this, then to this, then to this, then to this. And so on frame 1 of my butterfly line layer, I'm going to go ahead and try to draw over the top of my butterfly, trying to make sure, we'll test it in a minute, if I actually connected all my lines properly, is if the lines don't touch right, you won't be able to use the paint bucket. All right, so I've drawn the first frame. I'm going to go to frame, it says 2 here, but when working with traditional animation, most of the time you can get by for actions, having each drawing appear on the screen for 2 frames, and that will still be able to trick the brain well enough to think that it's moving, that it's a moving picture. So I'm going to go to frame 3 so that this frame will stay for 2 times. So I'm going to go to frame 3, and then I'm going to start tracing drawing number 2. And if you're not much of an artist, you can just trace over the reference. And when we get to the coloring of the butterfly, that'll be where you make it your own unique butterfly. My third drawing, I'm going to go to number 5. Now, we still got some more work to do because the butterfly needs to be in the same spot, but I'm going to show you some other tools in a minute when we get to that point. So we'll all this. Then finally, the last one here that we're going to draw, I'm going to go to frame number 7. Quick introduction to how to use the basics of Toon Boom. Future instructions will show you how to do other stuff with Toon Boom. All right. So I'm not going to do this last one yet till we make sure we got everything the way we want. Um, so what I'll do next is I'm going to go ahead and on this one, because I haven't drawn the other one yet, if I want it to stay for 2 frames, I just select that next frame. And at the top of your keyboard, just press the F5 key and it'll extend the exposure for that extra time. Then I'm going to go ahead and move my butterfly to the center to work on. So I'm going to go to frame 1, select it, grab this top selection tool, left mouse click and hold and drag a circle around the butterfly. I'm going to move it to the center of the screen so that I can make sure that nothing gets cut off when it renders. I'm going to go to frame 3 and I need to know where to line it up. And so what I'm going to do is over here on my toolbar at the very bottom, there's this little, what looks like a bowl. I think it's supposed to be an onion because it's called onion skin. But onion skin allows you to see so many frames in front of the current one you're on, so many frames after. And you can adjust that with this little slider here. So I'm going to now select this one and I can drag it over the top of my red one. I'm just trying to get it kind of close to where it looks like it would move properly. I'll go to the next one. That one's actually in pretty good position, but I may move it a hair. And again, red, since I didn't mention, I don't think yet, red are the drawings in front of the current frame. Green are the drawings after. So I'll grab this one now. I'm just kind of dragging them on top of each other. Then I'll turn onion skin off real quick and I may have to tweak the position a little bit, but that's kind of how it would look. I can slide this little slider back and forth and see how my butterfly is moving. That one right there kind of moves a little weird. So I may look at it. So now, what do we need to do? Now we need to add color. And so we're going to do, you need these layers to do the technique that I'm going to do. Because technically we could just create another layer in here and call it color and put it below the lines and just paint it. But Toon Boom is set up to do kind of like the old school traditional animation where they would draw their ink the outline of the character or whatever on the front side of a cell. Then they would flip the cell over and paint the back side. And when they flipped it back over again, you had nice clean outlines over the top of the nice clean ink. We're going to do something like that. And so what I will do is right here on frame 1, I'm going to grab my selection tool, just select the whole thing. I'm going to go to my color layer here, has a C, and at the top here, oh, sorry, I'm just going to hit this. Right here, it's got a blue line, some down arrows, and a white line. If you hover over it, it says create color art from line art. If I click that, it brings it down to here, but it brings the strokes, so the lines that make up those actual lines. And so now, if I have that, I can choose this paint bucket, and this is where we'll test if we filled in our spaces right or our lines correct. So if I choose a color over here, again, you can make your own colors. I'm just going to use what's defaulting. I'm going to try red. If I click in here, it is filled correctly because my lines made a perfect enclosed shape. So I'm going to do red on those top parts. I'll do blue on these bottom parts. And let's do black, or we'll do cyan, that cyan color we created for the body. So got my first part of my butterfly. Now, again, you could spend a lot of time on it, putting butterflies have unique patterns. You could paint the unique patterns if you wanted with the paintbrush. Spend some time working on that. This is just a kind of a how-to, so we're going to just go through it pretty quick. I'm going to go to frame 3, and then I'm going to, let's see, I'll flip back and forth. So I've got red. This is where naming my colors would be useful. So the top part of the wings are red. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my third frame, hit this button again, brings it down, grab my paint bucket, I'm going to do my red wings, grab my blue, which are the bottom, grab my cyan, which is the body. Going to go to frame 5, going to click this again to bring those. Since I already have my cyan picked, I'm going to go ahead and color my body and the head, then grab blue, paint the bottoms, grab red, paint the tops. Then go to this one, got red already selected, so I'll click the down, paint the tops, down to blue, paint the bottoms, and then there we go. Now let's say just for a test, let me go back to my line layer, and let's say I accidentally painted a shape, but I didn't close it. If I click the paint bucket, it doesn't work. So you can either, whoops, you have a couple options. You can either go in and paint it the rest of the way to fill the gap, then paint it, or you can go down here where the paint bucket is, go to stroke, and if you press K on your keyboard, if I zoom in, you can see the outline of the stroke. If I just simply, with my stroke selected, drag across, that will connect it. Then I can do my paint bucket. And that is a nice little feature because if you use that stroke tool to close in gaps, it won't actually show up when on it as a border of anything. So you could do an outline of something without actually having to paint an outline like we have here. I'm going to press K again to get rid of my strokes. All right. So now if we test it, we got our butterfly flapping his wings. Still don't like that frame right there, so I'm going to have to play around with it. But now that we've got this colored, what I'm going to do real quick is go to here, to frame 1, grab my selection tool, drag a circle around everything, and I'm going to, if I do Control C, Control go to my last frame and do Control V, you'll notice it did not do the color because I got to go back to the color layer. I'll go here, select it, Control C, Control V. Then I'm going to go ahead and extend the exposure. All right, so I'm going to move this guy up some real quick. I'm going to go, let me turn back on onion skin. Got to do it to the color layer as well. See how that looks once I turn off onion skin. Yeah, that's much better. All right, so now I've got my frames. Now, again, we are going to do a real basic way to finish this off so that you can see how to reuse our cycle. The butterfly layer, the reference layer, I no longer need that, so I'm going to go ahead and unlock it, right-click and tell it to delete. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take frame 1, hold shift, select the last frame here. I'm going to do copy. I'm going to go to frame 11. And I'm going to do Control V so that I have extended my drawing. I'm going to go to frame, this last one here again, and keep going till I get pretty much to the end. Because right now, we're just trying to make it repeat. And so now I've got 60 frames of a butterfly flapping its wings. This timeline, I'm currently on frame 1. My starting point is 1. My stopping point is frame 60. If I go to here, I can turn this little button on, which tells it to loop, and then I can hit this play. And so now I've got a butterfly just flapping his wings nonstop. But we don't want him to just stay in one spot. So what I'm going to do is first, let's do a Control S or save, file save. And I'm going to go ahead and on the timeline here, this one with the orange little line and the plus sign, it says add peg. I'm going to click on that and it links my butterfly layer to this peg. Now with the peg, what I can do is if I turn on this animate current frame button again, and I select my transform, I can move it, say, over here, and it sets a keyframe. Go to frame 10. Let's go ahead and drag it maybe over here. Frame 20. I'm going to go ahead and move it over here. So butterflies tend to just kind of move all over the place. So we don't really need any crazy planning. So I'm just kind of moving it all around. And each time I do that, you see it puts a peg or a keyframe for the peg. So now, if I go through my slider, between those keyframes, it fills in the gaps with the in-betweens. If I want it to look a little more fluid, I can go here and maybe make it do kind of more of an arc as it goes so that it kind of goes up and then down. Here, maybe it goes forward a little bit before it goes back. Then here, maybe it goes up some more. Same thing here, go up a little more. And maybe here, I'll go back a little. And this one goes straight down, so I'll go here, and then I'll go up some. So now if I play it, It's kind of flying like a butterfly. I have one spot over here where I just want to check it because it looks like it gets really close to that edge. So the wing gets really close right there. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it back this way some on that keyframe. And if I go over a specific keyframe, it will override it with the movement that I just made. All right, so now the final steps. Um, Normally with Toon Boom, the idea is you do most of your animation in here. You would use a software like Photoshop or something to create your background, and you would import that in and have your background painted nicely and put as the backdrop. Because we did our little character in color, we will be able to see it no matter how we render it. But the edges in black here, we wouldn't be able to see if we don't put some kind of background, because when we export, what we're going to do is export an animated GIF. And when we do that, Toon Boom is going to put a black background on it. And so if there's a black background and then all of a sudden you have stuff that has black, it's going to hide that part. So what I'm going to do to fix that is I'm going to go to this plus sign here, choose color card, and I'm going to drag this color card all the way to the bottom. Whoops, that didn't go where I wanted it. Let's undo that. I want to get the color card out of here. Okay, let's just do it this way. Let's drag it above the peg so it breaks loose. Oh, why is it doing this? Let's try this again. I'm going to deselect everything, hit plus, then hit the color card. There we go. If you are having issues like I was, just Control Z till you get rid of the color card, then deselect all your layers, and then add the color card. And what that does is if I click away from it, it just puts a white background for my animation to have. All right, so now I'm going to do one more file save. We're going to finish this up. I'm going to go to, we're going to export a video file or a GIF file. So I'm going to go to File, Export, Animated GIF. I'm going to browse to a location, make sure it's a location that has plenty of space. It's not a big file, but if it has any trouble saving, it will mess up when trying to render or freeze. And I'm going to call this Butterfly. Then I'm going to hit Save. I'm going to go for export range. I'm going to tell it frames 1 to 60. Leave the resolution the way it is. I'll leave looping on since it's a GIF. We'll just let the GIF loop. Then I'm going to hit OK. It's going to go through the process of exporting. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my downloads folder while it's doing that, since that's where I told it to save. And so once it's done, this file should be good for me to access. And now that it's coming to the end, it tells me it's done. I'm going to hit OK. Go back to my folder that just closed out on me. I'm going to double click on my GIF file, and it should look something like that. And now we've made a basic animation using Toon Boom Harmony Premium to kind of get a feel for it. Now I could slow this down because butterflies don't flap like that. So I may go in and slow down his movement some, but those are the things that you would mess with to try to get it to look the way you want it, to get it to look more accurate. So that is an introduction to Toon Boom Harmony. I will continue to add more videos that show different things you can do with Toon Boom. And hopefully you'll subscribe and keep an eye out for those new videos. All right, we'll see you in the next one.